You might not know this, but if you do, that's great. And it might change the way that you view the world, and especially people that you don't agree with. So let me set the scene up for you. I am at an event, a social event for the not-for-profit that I am the chair of the board, and one of the speakers did a segment called a teeny tiny TED Talk. And I really appreciated the way the speaker framed it. Lori talked to us about this concept of polarity. So again, if this is familiar to you, cool. I'm just learning this. And again, this is Life Lessons Learned, a Tim Unscripted series. So Lori was talking about polarity, and she was really dialing into the idea that in the United States in particular, but I know this is true in other places in the world, we've got a lot of polarization. We've got a lot of left versus right versus wrong. You know, whether that be political opinions or personal opinions. I mean, all opinions are personal opinions. So the point is, though, that we used to be fairly closely aligned in the United States. The margin between views was fairly narrow. There was kind of a general consensus of how the world operated according to the way that we, as American citizens, saw the world. But over the course of time, this gap has widened significantly, and a lot of this is as a result of polarity. Now, polarity is not good, it's not bad, it's a neutral force. Think of it in terms of a magnet. You have a North Pole and you have a South Pole. The same thing is in effect with the Earth. Geomagnetics are a thing. In the view of polarity, we take an understanding that there can be two truths that we evaluate at the same time without making a judgment as to whether they are right or wrong, whether they are moving in the direction that we would prefer or not. And when you begin to understand how polarity works, polarity is a scientific concept. It's a mathematical equation. It is part of the natural world in which we live. And being able to really dial in and set aside bias, set aside opinion, evaluate what's being said, not the speaker, not the way it's being delivered, but evaluating the merit of what's being expressed. And of course, reviewing that against facts, because all the world around us, every single one of us has a perception, a series of lenses by which we look through and view the world. I used to look at the world really from a very military perception. Being in the military for nearly 25 years, that will do a thing to an individual. So I saw the world in this way. But in the years post-retirement, I see the world differently. I went from, wow, I'm part of something that can balance the scales through the use of force or coercion to, you know what? I want to create something in this world that benefits humanity. I don't want to crush things. I want to create things. I live in polarity. It's not that what I did, for nearly 25 years of my life in the active and reserve components of the military was wrong. And it's not that being in product development is right. It's understanding that through my life, I walk this line of polarity. One of the things that I had to come to terms with post-retirement was the blunt force that the military uses as a resort to get things done. And the damage that has caused, both to me as an individual, in addition to the damage that it's caused when it's wielded in such a way that it doesn't take human dignity into account. That being said, I decided to stop being this person over here and start being the person that I'm becoming over here, which is being a creative force for good. Being willing to stretch and grow and challenge myself to take on things that I don't fully understand, that in a sense almost run counter to the life that I led in uniform all those years ago. That's polarity. It's dynamic. It changes. It shifts. I go into rooms today where I know that I am a minority voice, where I know that I am representing a small segment of the overall audience that generally may not be well received. And that's all right. Because if I'm not willing to entertain a degree of polarity, if I'm not willing to evaluate truths that can simultaneously be valid, I don't think that I could ever be the type of creative person that I would desire to be and be able to influence making our world into a better place if I didn't take into account polarity in the process. And this is difficult, folks. I am not going to lie. A conversation I had years ago with one of my former colleagues, Eric, he said, have strong opinions, but those opinions need to be loosely held. Have strong opinions, but hold them loosely. And it resonated with me. And it is a way of managing polarity in life. I am a proud Texan. I am a Texan by choice. I was born and raised in California. I joined the Navy. I left California. I didn't look back. California and Texas today, in 2026, are polar opposites in many ways. And I'm saying this having lived in California from birth to 19 and living in Texas now for, 11 years, 12 years. I've got a lot of experience in Texas. I've got a lot of experience in California. And the polarity is real. And that's why I can walk into a space like I did the other night in a social event, listen to a speaker, go, this is a valid view. This is a reality. I've experienced it firsthand. This makes me a better person. I've learned to be able to do this and this when a view is expressed that I don't agree with. Now, mind you, there are always going to be limits. I reached a limit a few months ago during a conversation that I felt was being very unproductive. And it was because it was going around and around. And there was no resolution at the time. And I was just fed up. And I apologized because I didn't handle myself in a way that I would normally handle myself. So even in the midst of balancing polarity, I get it wrong from time to time. And this is, this is my humanity on display. And it's okay, because even with a little seasoning and experience in life, I don't get it right every time. And I don't think you do either. And being able to learn this type of understanding, this type of way to navigate the world is of huge benefit. Heck, I deal with polarity even at home, with my wife originally being from Croatia, and a totally different cultural construct, different language, versus me living here, born and raised in the United States. Our daughters balance polarity. And they do it really well, by the way. They've traveled around the world. They're well-versed. They have a beautiful tapestry of friends. And this is the joy of living. This is the joy of gaining better understanding and seeking to strike a balance in the way that I relate to the world. I'm glad that Lori introduced me to this from a conceptual side, knowing this full well from math and science and lots of other things, engineering, but being able to put it into human terms that are relatable, that are specific to a life experience that I'm having right now. So when you are facing something that challenges your understanding and your intellectual construct, think through the fact that you may be walking in and through a moment of polarity where you can balance and validate and even accept a truth that is in opposition to your own. Now, mind you, I'm not asking you to give up your ethical boundaries. I'm not asking you to violate your principles. I'm asking you to evaluate with an open mind that two truths, while in opposition, can be relatable. in you know, even we see this, in interfaith dialogue, where leaders of different religious backgrounds try to get together to reason and understand how their faith traditions can make the world a better place for everyone. Now, there's all kinds of nuance in that, and I don't need to get into the detail, but it's a good example of where polarity comes into play, and hopefully those faith leaders walk away better people with a better understanding and a way to help educate and enlighten the people in their care. And we can do the same. None of us have to be a faith leader to make this work. We just have to be empathetic and willing to walk in this in-between uncomfortable state between these two truths and recognize when polarity is happening and be willing to embrace it and accept that this is a dynamic part of life and it's all around us and it doesn't change its existence. So I learned something about polarity. I hope that you've benefited from what I discovered being in a room with people who I may or may not agree with and listening with an open mind to understand how I can better navigate a world where the gap seems to be widening rather than narrowing. That was a life lesson learned, brought to you by Tim Unscripted.